welcome to my channel. In this video, I will share with you how I draw my Twitch banners on Procreate, and I have a little surprise for you at the end of the video, so please stay tuned and let's get started. So you're going to create a 1920 by 480 pixel canvas. This is the optimal size for Twitch banners. To start, you're going to pick any color you want your sky to be. I use the soft brush to lay down the colors, and I usually like to go for a warmer tone, but you can always go for a cooler tone sky or a rainbow sky. Once you have the colors that you like, go into effects and choose Gaussian blur, then increase the percentage. I usually choose between 20 to 35%, and this is what gives you that nice gradient effect. When you're happy with how your background color looks, you can start adding clouds. Otherwise, you can play around with different colors until you have a background that you're happy with. I ended up changing my background color, and you'll see this in the video later on, but I wasn't too happy with the current color that I have, and that's okay. If you make sure that your clouds and your background layer are on different layers, then you can easily change the background color anytime you want, since it's not too difficult to just put a bunch of colors together and then apply that Gaussian blur. Ended up redoing the entire background because it wasn't what I had envisioned in my mind in terms of how I wanted the colors to look. I really wanted something more warm toned, pastel, but not too cold and purple. So I messed around with the different color combinations until I ended up with something I liked. This is where I was kicking myself, because if I spent a little more time learning about color theory, I think I could have come up with a better combination that I wanted instead of just kind of throwing spaghetti at a wall. But it ended up working out eventually, so color theory what? But in all seriousness, I highly recommend learning color theory, and I will too. So with the first color and clouds, I actually had each cloud on a separate layer, but I ended up deciding to put my clouds on one layer and then having the lighter clouds in the background on a different layer, because I didn't want to have to group all these different individual singular clouds and then figure out which ones I needed to shade. So in this case, it was easier for me to group them into layers as opposed to having them on individual layers and then putting them into groups, because the way that I shade these will be using a clipping layer, and if all my clouds were on individual layers, I would have to do a clipping layer for each cloud layer, or I'd have to merge them all together eventually anyways. You can decide how you want to do this part, but I decided I wanted to have one layer that was at a really high opacity. I think it was around 90%, and then the other two layers were at a lower percentage. I think it was maybe between 30 to 50%, and this was to make the sky look a lot fuller, because it would look a bit weird if all your clouds were the same shade and you wouldn't be able to tell which ones are closer and which ones are further back. So this just helps add a lot more depth into the background. the background color was too saturated, so I went into effects and I turned down the saturation. But if you really like saturated colors, then you can turn it up. Or you can also change the hue of your background if you don't like what you had to begin with. And that could also save you some time from redoing the background from scratch again. This is more of a personal choice, but I added Gaussian blur around 5% to the second and third layers of the clouds so that the lines are not as obvious and they're more blurred out, so you can tell that they're actually in the background, which helps emphasize the clouds in the front more. Outlining your clouds is totally optional, but I highly recommend that if you do it, that you experiment with the different layer settings to see if you can find the layer setting that you want for how you want the outline to look. I wanted my outline to have some sort of gradient effect, and I couldn't find a layer that could do it in the way that I want for me, so I ended up using a normal layer setting and alpha locking the outline layer and then just turning it into a gradient by adding colors and a Gaussian blur. To line the clouds, I'm using monoline because I like uniform lines for my cloud drawing, but you can also use different brush pens to get different line weight. So maybe you wanted to emphasize one part of the cloud more than the other, and I think that could also make your background look a lot more dynamic than mine. Decided to add in some stars to make my background look even cuter, but you can also get away with finding any sort of brush that has a star stamp effect or like the bouquet effect. In one of the links in my description below, I do share a link to different brush packs that you could use for Procreate, and I think some of them do offer like a star or sparkle brush pattern for you to download and use. So definitely play around with those to see if you can find something that really suits your style and channel. So when you're happy with your design, you can add in text. What's great about Procreate is you can add in text directly, but I think you're limited to the fonts that they have in Procreate. So your other alternative that's free would be Canva, or if you have Photoshop or any online photo editing tool, most of them do let you add text on an image. So you can play around with those to figure out where you want to place your username, and if you want to add in socials, you can do that here too. But if you were to add in socials, then I would recommend using Canva because I think they have some preset icons. Otherwise, I did link in my description below where you can download some icons for social media, but it's not inclusive of all the ones that you might need. So I would recommend Canva if you really want to add in your socials. I decided to shade my clouds after I added text, but if you were interested in shading your clouds, here's how I would do mine. You would first create a clipping layer on top of the cloud layer that you wanted to shade, and then choose any dark or gray color that you want to use for your cloud, or even like a red if you feel like that matches your theme more. And then set that layer to multiply, and then use a soft brush tool and just simply add in your shadows where you feel like would make your clouds pop out more. So I focused more on parts where I wanted to emphasize that it's more floofy, and so that's where I added in my shadows. Just make sure that when you are doing your clipping layer that you know which cloud layer you're looking at, because I think at some point I forgot which layer I was looking at. And I thought I was shading my first layer, but I was actually shading my third layer. So I couldn't really see what I was doing. at some point I forgot to use the clipping layer for my clouds, and so the shadows went all over the place and it got a little bit wonky. So this is my reminder, don't forget to use your clipping layer, or else it'll end up a bit weird until you figure out which layers your shadows are supposed to go on. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Here is a final look on what the background looks like, and as a thank you for watching my video and for hitting 500 subscribers a while back, this is my gift for all my viewers. Here is a free Twitch banner background for you to use. Feel free to add it to your Twitch channel and add in your username and socials and tag me if you end up using it, because I would love to see how you've set up your channel. If you found this tutorial helpful or fun, let me know by leaving a comment, like, or subscribe, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!